Hi there. We are chatting this afternoon with Aaron Prather. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about the sort of aging manufacturing, workforce that we're seeing right now. Saw your post on LinkedIn that kind of like hit on the average age of a worker in manufacturing is more than 44 years. How can manufacturers kind of tap into Gen Z and get them energized about manufacturing as a career?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue we're seeing with manufacturers is, yeah, how do you connect with the younger generation? Because they're still, some of them sadly are still looking at textbooks that are showing the factories of earlier times and how they were just dark and dirty places. And that's just not what modern manufacturing is. And I think also when you think about it is how a lot of kids get into whatever their career is they know somebody that's doing that. So as we're losing manufacturing jobs, a lot of kids just don't know anyone in their family that does this kind of stuff. So they don't know that this is not your grandfather's manufacturing anymore. So I think that's one of the things that just overcoming that perception, and not only just for the kids but their parents. A lot of I saw an article earlier that said, should we bring U.S. manufacturing back? And it was majority of folks on, yeah, we should do that. It says, are you going to work those jobs? And only 20% said, yeah, I'll do
I
that.
was I was going to bring that up. That was the Cato Institute survey. It was from I think last August. I saw that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? That people agree, yeah, we should have manufacturing in the United States, but no one wants to work those jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always the big catch 22 we see with all this of you're like, oh, because I've always had to deal with this of like we should put more robotics and automation into manufacturing, not only to address the labor shortage, but also just to make it more efficient. And people are like, you're taking people's jobs. I'm like, okay, you want the job? And they're like, no. And it's like, okay, well then, what do you want here, kind of stuff. I mean, it's almost NIMBY attitudes in like I don't want you to take that job, but I'm not willing to do that job. Like, okay, then where are we going? I mean, it is that whole thing at least. I mean, and I can see a lot of us get caught up in that, but at the end of the day, if you're not willing to do that job, don't tell other folks how to do it. Plain and simple.
Is the solution somehow rooted in automation? Is it getting people excited about using automation and being kind of like the brain behind that automation and you have like obviously people are needed
Mhm.
in the automation process. How do you feel manufacturers can get younger people excited about being that sort of brain behind the automation?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the best story I can tell is when I saw some folks that are being trained as CNC operators. And I mean, these are the kind of jobs we need. We need folks that know how to run CNC machines, because they got to set up the machines, they got to know how to program them. So that's really exciting stuff. And then when you show them how they could attach a robotic arm to the CNC machine, so now it's putting the raw stock in and taking the finished product out, and that they could do that, and they could run maybe six, eight CNC machines doing that. You see, I mean, I saw these guys' eyes light up like, wow, I could do all that, and it's empowering when not only are they showing that they're skilled tradesmen on how they can design parts and make great parts, but that they're also programmers, they're roboticists, they're floor managing. I mean, they're doing all these different things. And I just think it starts to show what the potential of adding automation can be. We all use automation in our daily lives. It's sometimes we just don't realize it. I mean, this thing that was given to us has changed the world, but it's taking that thought process of everything that this small little phone has done for us, of how do you apply that to manufacturing? How do you apply that to agriculture? How do you apply it to all these jobs that no one really wants to do? But if we could automate them, you're solving the process and creating a whole new job at the same time.
Right. Is there some I guess, use in changing the way that we go about training people. I've had conversations about this before that no one reads manuals anymore. No one's going to go and look up how to, change a part. They're going to look up a video.
Yeah.
And do you feel like there's real value in manufacturers kind of changing the way that they approach how they train their employees?
I do I really do think there is, and exactly as you said, we're not reading manuals anymore. We're watching YouTube videos, and you can learn a lot from a YouTube video. I've learned plenty from YouTube videos.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there is a mindset change there, and I mean, one of the things I've also started thinking about from a recruitment side of this, of how do you get more folks in, is we all remember those days back as students in school where you raise your hand and says and ask the teacher says, "What am I going to use this for?"
Yeah.
Well, maybe we need to start showing what some of this is. I've always thought that having a robotic arm in geometry classes would probably go a long way in showing what X, Y, Z axes really look like, and
Absolutely.
actually programming a robot as you're learning geometry, and then literally saying, "Wow, I can now apply this thought process to this." So I think it'd be great if each course we take sort of shows like what career paths each of these courses could lead to, and you could do that as a video. I mean, you could, and it's I think we just have to start thinking outside the box of how do you connect with some of these. I think one of the things in like this Wall Street Journal article that came out, it talks about just how a lot of folks just sort of come across some of these jobs in this, and the term was haphazard mix of initiative, luck, coincidence, and connections.
Yeah.
We need to sort of figure out, okay, how do we not make that haphazard? How do we really get to those points? How do we create networks of connections? How do we not make it where it's just luck that you came across this? How do we deliberately show how various education programs lead to different careers and what those look like? And we probably could do it in YouTube videos. I think that might actually be the best. I mean, TikTok. I mean, let's put some of this short video creation to use. And I think we see progress on that front. And I think there are some smart manufacturers that are trying those things of how do you connect with the next generation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on that, front from the Wall Street Journal article, there has been this push to move manufacturing jobs back to the United States. I feel like that's a more complex issue. But how can we make it less complex? And is there a way to fast forward that process? Or do you think it is something that's just going to take, a lot of kind of rethinking and changing the way that we approach technology and manufacturing as an industry?
I mean, I think it's going to take a multi-approach because the ultimate thing is everyone can like see the Ford factory or the Whirlpool factory and say, "Oh, I know what that company does. I understand what Whirlpool makes. I know what Ford makes." The whole thing is the core of all manufacturing are the smaller guys. The guys that you don't know what they're really making, but they're making all the parts that are going into the bigger things. And that's who we need to focus on is how do you get these smaller and medium businesses not only employees and attached to how do we connect them with those employees, but how do we connect them with the automation? Because those guys don't go to trade shows. They don't go looking for, they sort of need to be almost pulled in to this. And I think this comes to the second point. If we're going to use any kind of social media to do this, we also got to be very brutally honest of what works, what doesn't work, because what the last thing is we don't need a small manufacturer. Oh, I can just buy these humanoids. Yeah, that's all. That's all smoke and mirror, guys. Right now, that's just fancy videos. It's but how do you get them excited about how to find employees, how to get them trained on this stuff, and what is the realistic expectations? It's just amazing of there's still so many small manufacturers with CNC machines that don't know how to do robotic arms, like we talked about earlier. Uh, how do we get them just up to speed on those kind of things? So it is a double-edged sword of how do you attract the workers and get their skills up to par, and how do you get the automation and the tools to then bring all that together because when you have skilled workers and great automation together, that's when the big stuff happens. And the big players know that.
Mm.
It's how do we get the small and medium guys to know that too?
Right. Do you think that there's real value? And I've seen it at least anecdotally, a push towards trade school.
Mhm.
I think as the Wall Street Journal article mentioned, there are more careers that are very well-paying, careers that don't require a college degree, that don't require advanced education. It's
Yep.
just a matter of training. Do you feel like we're going to have a sort of revitalization of trade school and maybe even in high schools, a push towards more trades-based education?
Yeah, I mean, I really think the German model, as it's always referred to, I mean, NIST has sent teachers and their own folks over to Germany to look at that model. I was in Stuttgart just last month, and it was interesting because I was going to a conference and I had to ride the tram. Each morning, I'm riding the tram with a bunch of kids because they're not going to their local schools, they're going to their specialty school, they're going to their university bound school or their trade school. And there is something to be said about that model because we do know that kids start forming an opinion of where they see themselves going by about the middle school, freshman year ages. So it's like, why don't we get them in those programs? My one concern is I think, and it's still being sort of studied out. I am of the personal opinion that No Child Left Behind really destroyed the trades because everything got pushed to focusing on take the test. We got to show that you're reading and writing and all that, and math is all good. And that huge focus on testing sort of just made all the other stuff fall away. And now it's like we need those skill. We need those trade skills back. So I personally really see a value in trade schools, but now it's like how we have to rebuild them practically in so many places. Now, there are still some great ones out there that are really thriving, and I think that makes the case we need more of them. I know a local high school here just opened up a CNC machine shop and all that, and it's being praised. Like, thank you for doing this. We need this. And it's like, yeah, we need about a dozen more too, just in my local area for to keep up. So there is something to be said about it, but I think also it's going to take a big push at the local, state, and federal levels, and I just don't know if we're there right now.
Yeah.